Islamophobia is a major problem in contemporary society. It is heightened with terrorist attacks and with the rise of groups like ISIS. Terrorist attacks have become a huge concern in modern society, with around 117 terrorist attacks occurring in 2019. Now, terrorism is a problem in itself, but we as the public would not have known about all these 117 attacks, but only the ones that the attackers were Muslim. The media contribute to and create Islamophobia. What is the media? The media consists of anything used to deliver information. It includes print media like newspapers, radio, or social media. People nowadays cannot escape from media, as it is everywhere, especially with the rise of social media. The media is very useful in general when we want to know about events like a pandemic, like the coronavirus. However, there's many problems with how the media report on things. The news lacks diversity, and there's a lot of fake news, especially on social media. People have constant exposure to it. Ireland's media has become concentrated. There's a few people that own the media outlets, which causes people to see the same information and the same narrative. These problems with the media are contributing to Islamophobia. Now, people may not have heard of the term Islamophobia, but it is a major problem in contemporary society. Islamophobia is the fear or hatred towards Islam or Muslim people as they fear they are all terrorists. Now, Islamophobia has significant consequences for Muslims. They are discriminated against and some are even physically and emotionally assaulted. Hate crime is a serious issue that Muslim people face on a daily basis. The media has caused Islamic people to be painted with the one brush. They are all seen as terrorists and a threat. However, people need to realize that it is not mainstream Islam that is the problem, but it is fanatics that have a radical political religious agenda. The media contribute to Islamophobia either directly or indirectly. They do this by misrepresentation, disproportionate coverage, propaganda, and some media techniques. Misrepresentation is giving a false or misleading account of the nature of something. Media outlets might use misrepresentation to support their view or to change people's outlook. An example of this is the Media Matters in America compiled a list of people who were brought onto news shows to talk about Trump's executive order that would prevent immigration from seven Muslim countries. They found that out of the 176 guests, only about 8% of them were Muslim. This is about 15 or 16 people. So obviously the guests that were brought on to talk about the executive order would not have the same opinions as the Muslim people would, as it would not affect them. They might think it's a great idea. So the public are viewing this executive order as a good idea. A recent study done by Kearns 2018 found that 59% of articles associate Muslims with negative aspects. They use words like evil and a threat and terrorists and insane. They also misrepresent aspects of the Muslim belief. The same study found that almost 1 out of 4 online articles misrepresent Muslims' belief. This is very worrying because people are getting younger and younger joining social media and wouldn't be able to spot fake news or something that wasn't factual. So they grow up with all these false ideas and beliefs about Muslims that are negative. Headlines are one way the media are misleading. An example of a misleading headline is the one that appeared on Mail Online, which stated that the Duchess Mosque was linked with 19 terrorists. The use of the word terrorist is misleading, as the outcome of the ongoing trial was not determined. The word terrorist instantly instills fear amongst the public. An example of the misrepresentation of the Muslim belief is Boris Johnson's article in 2018, where he refers to wearing the burqa as oppressive, and it is ridiculous that women go around looking like letterboxes. The burqa is a choice the Muslim people make. It does not symbolize the religion, as far less people wear it than you would think. For example, in France in 2011, only 0.04% of the French Muslim population wore the face covering burqas. The media portray the Muslims in a very negative light. They pose them as wicked, barbaric, as a monster, and evil. There are many good things Muslims should be known for and remembered for, but aren't. Here are some examples. Many Muslims fought in the Army for America. For example, Bamba Muhammad fought in the Virginia line between the years 1775 and 1783. Also, we wouldn't have ice cream cones if it wasn't for Ernest Hamwi, who created the first edible ice cream cone. Muslims are covered very unfairly and disproportionately in the media. Most terrorist attacks covered in the news are done by Muslims. It was found that Muslims' terrorist attacks receive 357% more coverage than any other attacks done by other groups. A study recently found that out of 136 attacks, Muslims only accounted for 13%, but received more than half of the media coverage. These disparities can negatively influence the public's perception of terrorist attacks. People can be misled. The results illustrates the unbalanced nature of media coverage of terrorist attacks following 9/11. Here are some examples of disproportionate coverage. In 2013, the Boston Marathon received 20% of all media coverage, as it was carried out by two Muslim people, but it only killed 3 people. Compare this to a mass shooting that was carried out by Dylan Roof that only received 7% of the media coverage, but killed 9 people. Propaganda is a technique used by the media. It is a set of messages intended to influence the people's opinions. Instead of telling the people the truth, it aims to influence the behavior of people, so it presents its ideas very selectively. Propaganda was utilized during the wars. Here are some examples of propaganda that were used in the war. This picture was used in World War I by the British. It was aimed to strike at a man's pride. It was very misleading, as it suggested that joining the war was beneficial for the men, but in actual fact it was the British that needed the numbers. This is a form of political propaganda. As you can see, Bill and Hillary Clinton coming out of McDonald's as they want to appear as a normal person that go here regularly. Here are some examples of newspapers propaganda. These newspapers are making sweeping statements as there is no evidence to back up their claims. Fake news is on the rise as a result of social media. Fake news is a form of news consisting of deliberate disinformation or hoaxes. Fake news has no basis in fact, but is presented as facts. Bigots are spreading fake stories about Muslims. An example of this is a Facebook post that claimed that Muslims that use part of their home as a place of worship are exempt from paying tax. But there is no truth in this, as there is no possible way a person can avoid paying property tax even if they claim to use their house for religious purposes. There are many media techniques that the media use that contribute to Islamophobia. Selectivity, framing, and demonization are some examples of these techniques. The media are very selective on what they report, as it is physically impossible that they can report on everything. They choose what to report on depending on the narrative they want to portray. The media limits the voices and views that we are exposed to in the public sphere. The media can be seen as having an agenda. The limiting of voices in the public sphere is worsened by the concentration of media ownership because the same few people own most of the media outlets in Ireland. So you may see 6 or 7 newspapers with the same headline, but if you look into it, them 7 newspapers could be owned by the same person or company. This media instill on the public what they should think instead of what they think. Framing is a technique used to put a certain spin on the story. The framing changes the perspective and changes the story. The media has framed Islam and Muslim as terrorists by using words as evil and as threat. Many people cannot see the difference between a real terrorist and threat and a Muslim, or just a normal Muslim. People should be very wary of the media. The media is not always honest, fair, and transparent about the information that they portray. They use different techniques to portray the narrative that they want. The media only ever cover Muslims and Islam in a negative way, as they want people to fear them. But there is so much more to their religion. They are not all evil and terrorists.